Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham, Recha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Jeremiah, the 11th chapter, the broken covenant, in which in this chapter, the Lord reminds, Jeremiah concerning the covenant he made with us, and our forefathers, and how Israel ended up breaking them, and doing far worse than their forefathers did. He then also warns Jeremiah about the plot by his own people, because he was from Anathoth, and by the people there wanting to basically slay him and put him to death, but at the same time assuring Jeremiah that he would deliver him and bring judgment upon those wicked individuals. So this is Jeremiah chapter 11, verse 1. The word that came to Jeremiah from the Lord Yahweh, saying, Hear ye the words of this covenant, and speak unto the men of Judah and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem. And say thou unto them, Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, God of Israel, Cursed be the man that obeyeth not the words of this covenant. And quite literally so, because when you go into the book of Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, it covers the agreement, the covenant that was made between the nation of Israel and the God of Israel, the Most High Yahweh. And it covers what blessings the Lord would give or bestow upon Israel if they adhered to the covenant, and what punishments or curses he would place upon them if they obeyed not the covenant or they broke it. So here, as the Lord says, Cursed be the man that obeyeth not the words of this covenant, which I commanded your fathers in the day that I brought them forth out of the land of Egypt. So in that wilderness from the iron furnace, So here he likens Egypt onto an iron furnace to emphasize the harshness and the the terrible conditions of the captivity that we served in Egypt, saying, Obey my voice and do them, according to all which I command you, so shall ye be my people, and I will be your God. And that was the contract, when the Lord delivered us and we did the sacrifice and we formed the covenant. That's what the Lord said, Follow the things that I command you and you'll be good. You'll be my people and I'll be your God, that I may perform the oath which I have sworn unto your fathers, to give them a land flowing with milk and honey. So what oath was that? Going back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the Lord promised. He made a promise unto Abraham, And so by us adhering to this law and this covenant, the Lord could make good on that promise by taking us into that land, As it says, to give them a land flowing with milk and honey. Now, the term or the phrase flowing with milk and honey does not mean it's literally like rivers of milk and like honey. That's symbolic for it's fruitful and it can yield to you, the best of it, great resources, crops, and so on and so forth, as it is this day. Then answered I and said, So be it, O Lord. So Jeremiah responded, O Aman, let it be. Then the Lord Yahweh said unto me, Proclaim all these words in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem, saying, Hear ye the words of this covenant and do them. So go out and prophesy. Tell them this. For I earnestly protested unto your fathers. And that earnest protesting, meaning the Lord emphasized it, severely. Unto your fathers in the day that I brought them up out of the land of Egypt, even unto this day. So since then, up until now, the Lord has been protesting onto his people to what? To obey him, to turn back to him. And how has he been doing that? Rising early and protesting saying, obey my voice, that was by way of sending the prophets. They were the ones that would rise early and go and speak the words of the Lord, just as Jeremiah in this time was being commanded to go and speak those words. Yet they obeyed not, nor inclined their ear. So they didn't listen. They didn't follow these ways. And in fact, they didn't even care to listen or give an ear to what the Lord has to say, but walked everyone in the imagination of their evil heart. Now, let me give you a little picture here, right? Even if you don't know, right, or expect somebody based on their outward appearance to give you certain information, the second, like if you truly revere or love or care for someone, and you hear that they have a message for you, sometimes, regardless of where the message is coming from, you're going to be attentive to it just because of the sake of who you think the message is coming from, right? So one example, and the reason I'm saying that is because people walk by us and they pretty much ignore us as we're prophesying on to them because, some of them in their minds may be thinking, no, I mean, I believe in God, but I don't believe there's no way these people have the message of God, even though they're saying they do, right? But if you were at work and you were out and somebody came to you and said, yo, I received a message or blah, blah, blah from, your wife or your mom or whatnot, and they're giving you details, like they're giving names and all that, you may not even trust them, right? And you may not, you may not believe them, but you would still be alert simply because of the fact that they mentioned the name. They gave you enough information for you to say, hold on, even if I don't want to believe what you're telling me, I'm going to go and call that person to confirm. I'm going to verify that what you're saying, whether what you're saying is true or not, because in the worst case scenario, if it's bad news and what you're saying is true, I care enough about this person that regardless of where I heard this message from, I'm going to take it seriously. And I say that to say that if people cared enough about the Lord, then regardless of whether they looked at us as being worthy to carry or bear the message of the Lord, the fact that we're mentioning the name of the Lord and saying that we're coming in the spirit of the Lord, they would look into it. They would at least stop to say, hold on, what do you mean? You mentioned the Lord and I care about the Lord. I fear the Lord. So let me hear what you got to say. And then I'll find out if you're truly sent of him or not. But they don't care. They don't care to the point where it's interesting how many so-called Christians would walk by and not, in the slightest bit care that you're speaking about something they claim to believe in. And I mentioned that because as we're reading in verse 8, it mentions that they didn't even incline their ear, right, to hear what the Lord has to say. So ultimately, they don't even care enough to even listen to what the Lord has to say. But walked everyone in the imagination of their evil heart. And, what we see oftentimes is somebody stops for a second or stops for a minute, and they always have something more important to do. They'll listen for a little bit, or maybe they'll listen for a second or two, and it's always, oh, wait, my bus is here, I got to catch the bus. Oh, my kids are calling me, or, oh, I'm late for this, or, that. And they don't realize that all of those things, come second, right, to the Most High, to the word of the Lord. But anyway, as it says, therefore I will bring, and that I'll say this, that's the difference between the spirit of the elect, the Lord's sheep, and everybody else, because at some point when the Lord opens up the minds, right, of his elect, they'll put the word of the Lord first, right? They'll put all the other stuff later. I can reschedule the appointment because this message that I'm hearing, it's valuable, and I don't know where and when else, I might have received it. So let me just hear everything I can hear now. Anyway, it says here, therefore, I will bring upon them all the words of this covenant, i.e. the curses. Because what? They didn't obey the words of the Lord. and they wanted to do, walking after the imagination of their evil heart, means they decided to live according to whatever it is they felt like doing. So the Lord says, I'm going to bring the curses in the covenant upon them, which I commanded them to do, but they did not do them. So the penalty, they're going to suffer that. And the Lord Yahweh said unto me, right? So verse 1 up to 8, right? The Lord is basically giving the dialogue to Jeremiah. And now in verse 9, Jeremiah says, then the Lord basically said unto him again. Now this could have been at a different point in time. But we know that this is what the message that he received was, right? And the Lord said unto me, a conspiracy is found among the men of Judah. All right. And that conspiracy, when you go into that word, one of the definitions there is treason. And among the inhabitants of Jerusalem, they are turned back to the iniquities of their forefathers, which refused to hear my words. And they went after other gods to serve them. The house of Israel and the house of Judah have broken my covenant. So they have conspired to revolt against the Lord and to walk in the wicked and perverse ways of their forefathers. And they've broken the covenant which I made with their fathers. Therefore, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, behold, I will bring evil upon them, which they shall not be able to escape. This is going to be judgment that you will have to go through. There is no loophole. There is no mercy. There's no way out of it. Everybody's going to suffer it. And though they shall cry unto me, I will not hearken unto them, because when I cried unto you, you didn't hearken. And it's only fair. Then shall the cities of Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem go and cry unto the gods unto whom they offer incense. So they're going to cry unto the Lord. Nothing is going to work. Then they're going to go to the different idols and stuff and try to pray to them and hope that they can do something. That's not going to work, right? But they shall not save them at all in the time of their trouble, because that trouble was destined to come upon them. And there was nothing they could do about it. For according to the number of thy cities were thy gods, meaning you had so many idols, so many false gods, to the point where it's like for each city you had, there was a different idol that you served. O Judah, and according to the number of the streets. And now remember, like, you have like these heathens, right? They'll have like the god of fertility, right? The god of the skies, the god of the ground, the god of death, the god of light, the god of rain, the god of snow. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Anyway, it says here, O Judah, according to the number of the streets of Jerusalem, have you set up altars to that shameful thing? So it's like on every street, there was an altar set up to some idol or to some god. Even altars to burn incense onto Baal. And today you may be driving by. You look to your right, you'll see a Botanica. You may go to some area, you look to your left, you'll see some like, you know, some satanic or some paganist or some ritualistic shop that's just open on like every corner. And it's just so. In Jake neighborhoods particularly, you see that. Right? It says here, therefore pray not for this people, neither lift up a cry or prayer for them, for I will not hear them in the time that they cry unto me in their trouble. So when that trouble comes, don't. I'm not going to hear their cries. I'm not going to hear their pleas. And if you pray for them, I'm not going to hear it. So don't even do it. Because the Lord is like, I've made up my mind. The judgment has been set. It's going to come upon them. That's it. Verse 15. What hath my beloved to do in mine house? Here the Lord is likening Israel unto his beloved woman. And he's saying basically, what place do you have here anymore? Right? And in real life, that would be his house being the temple. Right? What business basically do you have here? Seeing she hath wrought lewdness with many. Wrought meaning you've done, right? You've brought about lewdness, immoral acts with many. which in the perspective of a woman, sleeping with many men, this would be Israel worshiping many idols. And the holy flesh is passed from thee. And what this is saying is you're so far gone that even a sacrifice, which is like onto the holy flesh, wouldn't be able to redeem you. So that's why he said, what hath my beloved to do in mine house? When thou doest evil, then thou rejoicest. What do you do with the people like that? You're so far gone that you rejoice, you get happy when you do evil. And that's why they keep doing it. It may sound crazy, but look around you today. People get so like they love to commit adultery to the point where they get this high off of going after somebody's girl. And in fact, you'll see people going on stream and they'll go and walk up to a couple and then try to get the girl's number while the guy's right there. Like they is this thrill that they get from going around being known as a killer, where you murder innocent people just for a rep. They rejoice when they do evil. Here are some modern day examples for you. The Lord Yahweh called thy name a green olive tree, fair and of goodly fruit. So at one point, the Lord, had Israel, planted Israel as this olive tree, this good, well planted, well nourished olive tree, right, with goodly fruit, which would be the nation being the tree and the fruit being the people. With the noise, however, right, with the noise of a great tumult hath he kindled fire upon it, and the branches of it are broken. All right, and the branches represent the people as well. So the fire being the judgment that the Lord has basically set against Israel. Okay, and the branches being broken, meaning the people falling prey to that judgment. For the Lord of hosts that planteth thee hath pronounced evil against thee, for the evil of the house of Israel and of the house of Judah, which they have done against themselves. See, and it says that in also the book of Ezra, 2nd Ezra, I believe, that you basically think you've forsaken the Lord, but have you not, as it were, forsaken yourselves? Because you think that disobeying the Lord is going to hurt the Lord, but it's you who are going to suffer the penalty. That's why he says they have done this against themselves to provoke me to anger, because the Lord wasn't going to be sent captive by the Babylonians. You were. In offering incense onto Baal. So they did that against their own soul. Plots against Jeremiah. So as Jeremiah is prophesying these things, and from things we've been reading from the first chapter onward, clearly people weren't happy about that. Right? So it says here, in the Lord Yahweh hath given me knowledge of it. Of what? Of the plan of the conspiracy that Jeremiah's people had against him. Okay? And I know it. Then thou shewedst me their doings. So the Lord revealed to Jeremiah what it is that they were planning against him. But I was like a lamb or an ox that is brought to the slaughter, and I knew not that they had devised devices against me. So just like a lamb or an ox that's about to be slain is led to the slaughter, most of the time not knowing, Jeremiah was basically saying they were plotting against me, like, and I was like a lamb, just, about to walk right into it. Let me pull this verse 18 up in the NLT. It says, then the Lord told me about the plots my enemies were making against me. I was like a lamb being led to the slaughter. I had no idea that they were planning to kill me. Let's destroy this man and all his words, they said. Let's cut him down so his name will be forgotten forever. So back in the KJV, continuing, it says here, saying, let us destroy the tree with the fruit thereof. And what that means is Jeremiah would be representative of the tree, and his fruit will be his prophesying, right? His teaching, his works. They wanted to basically put an end to all of that. And let us cut him off from the land of the living, right? So to put him to death, that his name may be no more remembered. And why did they want to do this? Because they didn't want to hear the words that he was prophesying. But, O Lord, Yahweh of hosts, that judges righteousness or righteously. Now, keep in mind, I was fumbling because my brain was thinking about something else. And what it was thinking about was, from their perspective, they're like, yo, you're coming out here constantly getting on us. People don't like to be got on. Calling us out, talking about we're wicked and we forsook the gods of our fathers and blah, blah, blah. Talking about judgment is coming. Judgment is coming. Every day, judgment is coming. We don't want to hear that. Every day there's something wrong with what we're doing. We can't do this. We can't do that. We can't do this. Take that somewhere else. And so by constantly hearing that and being cut, Jeremiah basically became annoying onto them to the point where they wanted to put him to death. Verse 20, but O Lord of hosts, that judgest righteously, that triest the reins and the heart. So the Most High, he doesn't judge based on what you tell him. He doesn't judge based on what you look like. He judges based on your intent, your heart. And he knows the fullness of the situation. Let me see thy vengeance on them. So Jeremiah requested that the Lord, he basically take this into the Lord's hands and have the Lord recompense judgment upon them. For unto thee have I revealed my cause, meaning I've brought my case to you so you can handle it. Because they wanted to kill me for teaching your words. Therefore, thus saith the Lord Yahweh of the men of Anathoth, right? Once again, where Jeremiah was from. When you go into the book of Jeremiah, the first chapter, it tells you that, right? The words of Jeremiah, the son of Hilkiah, of the priests that were in Anathoth in the land of Benjamin. Benjamin, they quick with that. It says that seek thy life, saying, prophesy not in the name of the Lord Yahweh, that thou die not by our hand. So they were threatening him. In the NLT, it says here, they had said, we will kill you if you do not stop prophesying in the Lord's name. Crazy work. Therefore, thus saith the Lord of hosts, behold, I will punish them. The young men shall die by the sword. Their sons and their daughters shall die by famine. And there shall be no remnant of them. So I'm not going to leave a remaining of them. For I will bring evil upon the men of Anathoth, even the year of their visitation. Meaning, at the time when the judgment comes, I'm going to make sure that they all of them get judged. Nobody's going to be left to escape. And what's interesting about this is it also requires a great deal of patience, right? Because the Lord didn't tell Jeremiah, okay, by tomorrow I'm gonna do this. He says when the time of their visitation comes, when the year of their visitation comes, I'm gonna do all this. So don't worry about it. But here it is, they're threatening you. They're saying all these bad things about you. And you can't have quick retribution. But you have to trust that if the Lord said he'll take care of it, then he'll take care of it. And that brings us to the end of Jeremiah, the 11th chapter. Lord willing, this was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Recha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.